Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
If you really like this episode, please support our podcast by going to patreon.com/truecrimewives and get lots of great extras.
What case do you know that has a cross-dressing, affluent, socially awkward, suspected serial killer with ties to the mob? Well, Robert Durst, of course. This case is one I've personally followed for years. Durst was originally suspected of killing his first wife, Kathy, and then it's super strange. Durst goes on the run, even though police can't find any evidence to charge him with the murder. He leaves all his life behind, and he lives as a woman in a small apartment. All I can say is this was one of the first strange cases I ever followed heavily, and I've been waiting for this man to be brought to justice for a long time. He beat his first murder rap for a neighbor in the building he lived in when he was hiding out. But now he's finally back in court, charged with the murder of his longtime friend, Susan Berham. So sit back, grab a glass of wine, because you're going to need one. I know I do. And let us tell you the tale of Robert Durst.
He is a member of New York's multi-millionaire Durst family, real estate moguls. She's a woman on her way to become a doctor. He says the last time he ever saw her is when he dropped her off at the train station in 1982. She's never seen again. The case remains unsolved. Her family says Robert Durst is responsible. 28 years later, Durst's longtime friend and confidant, Susan Berham, was found murdered in her Los Angeles home. The year 2000, just as the investigation into the disappearance of Kathy Durst reopens. Meanwhile, Durst moves to Galveston, Texas. He lives in a small apartment. He takes on an assumed name, wears a wig, and even portrays himself as a woman. His next-door neighbor goes missing. Morris Black's body is found floating in the Galveston Bay, dismembered. Durst is charged with first-degree murder. He admits he killed him and dismembered him, and it was all in self-defense. The case goes to trial, and Durst is acquitted on all charges in 2003. 12 years later, Durst takes part in a documentary for HBO about his life, The Jinx. He is recorded off camera, talking to himself.
Horse.
Shortly after it airs in spring 2015, Durst leaves Texas, bound for Louisiana. Police are on his tail with an arrest warrant out of California for the murder of Susan Berham. Durst is arrested in a hotel in New Orleans. A gun is found in his hotel room. He pleads guilty to illegal possession of a weapon. His attorneys say that he didn't kill Susan Berham, and he doesn't know who did.
On the Good Wives Guide to True Crime, we discuss crimes that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Hey folks, it's time to grab your glass of wine because the Good Wives, Fancy, Colleen, and Christina, are about to serve up another true crime case.
Okay, guys, so basically this case deals with a guy who thinks affluenza, which you all know I don't believe is a damn thing, is going to save him from prison for being a serial killer. But at the same time, the guy pretends he doesn't want to live off his father's money. Give me a fucking break.
He is just the most bizarre case I've ever really looked at. There are so many little details about this man that don't make any sense. Living as a woman, living, killing dogs,
yes,
peeing
dogs
everywhere, just whipping his dick out. Like, what is happening?
Well, that's what I was going to say. This is one of the cases that I really knew absolutely nothing about. And when I started looking into it, I'm like, wait a minute. I knew there was like a dead ex-wife or a dead wife, but what is all this dressed as a woman living in? I was just so confused.
Oh yeah,
trying to lay out the details to this case. Bizarre is like the best word that I could possibly think of to describe everything. Like, I thought the Carol Baskin stuff was like, this is really, really bizarre.
This has been going on since the 70s. Like, this is a crazy case. I have been waiting for this man to be tried for murder of anyone forever. And then he finally gets tried at one point in time for the killing of he kills and dismembers the body of his neighbor, and then he claims self-fucking defense. What?
Well, then he goes on trial and he's acquitted of the murder, and then he's not like, he just gets off of everything, like acquitted, not guilty. What?
Right. Well, and the thing that gets him is that he decides to be, he thinks he's done, he's beat it all, and everything is groovy and gravy, and then he does this documentary with, called The Jinx, which if you have not seen it, highly recommend it. Super good. I absolutely think it's one of the best, really good true crime documentaries. And he gets caught on a fucking hot mic. And basically he's talking to himself, and it's almost like, and we're going to talk about this because he was diagnosed at one point in time with being like schizophrenic. And I almost feel like he's actually having a conversation with another person in his head. And unlike Nicholas Godejohn, I actually believe might be something like this going on in his head. Now, whether it's like a whole different personality or not, I don't know. But I think he does have like that schizophrenia kind of thing where, they talk to themselves and have conversations inside their heads, and delusions, because the conversation sounds like he's actually speaking to another person and answering himself. It's like the person asks him, he's talking about it, and he's like saying something like, what have you done? And he was like, oh, I've killed them all, of course. And then he goes on, if you listen to it even more than that, he has like a full-blown argument with himself. Like, full on back and forth. And it's very strange.
That's mental health disorder.
He's got some problems, man. Major problems. And he's older now, but he really thought he got away with all of it, I'm sure. And now he's like in his 70s, I think, and now he's been hauled back into court, and so this is a crazy, crazy case. Like you said, it just gets more bizarre and bizarre and bizarre. He had like 7 dogs named Igor. Like, who does that? Like, dog dies, they're mysteriously dying, and you just keep getting a new one and calling it Igor? Like,
or did he have them all at once?
No. No, his brother says...
He would just replace them?
Yeah, he would replace them. And his brother thinks that the dogs... And we're going to talk about that in the next episode when we get into a little bit more about the investigation and everything. Like, dogs are a big deal because he thinks that the dogs were basically him trying out different ways to get rid of his wife. Like, how can I kill her and dispose of her in the best way? And so he had, like, these tons and tons and tons of dogs. Like, his brother says 7, Durst says 2, but I'm gonna go with the brother on this one, and he basically was killing them in mysterious ways and burying them and getting rid of them, and then a new dog would just mysteriously appear. Like,
wow. So I was like experimenting pretty much to find a successful mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the most easiest way for him to do it, he's crazy. He is totally crazy. But it's an interesting case, so you're going to want to stick around and hear the whole thing.
Don't go anywhere. The Good Wives will be right back. Every great podcast needs a great website. Currently, our mother company, Mad Ginger Entertainment, is building their website using Bluehost. Bluehost is one of the best and most affordable web hosting platforms available. Plans start as low as $2.95 a month, and you can even integrate it with WordPress. So if you need your own website or affordable web hosting, grab our discount link in the description and get your podcast a bigger presence online at low costs.
Robert Allen Durst was born on April 12, 1943, and he's an American real estate heir, the son of New York City mogul Seymour Durst, and the elder brother of Douglas Durst, who is head of the Durst organization. Durst's paternal grandfather, Joseph Durst, who was a tailor when he emigrated from Austria-Hungary in 1902, eventually became a successful real estate manager and developer, and he founded the Durst organization in 1927. When his father died, Seymour became head of the family business in 1974.
What is up with, the whole real estate moguls in New York, just owning everything, making tons of money? Was that where it was at?
Yeah.
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 Damn.
They were basically mobsters. Like the real estate industry back then, in that industry, that they were mobsters, and he is connected to the mob here later on. So.
Yeah, it's so funny because the complex that I live in, there's always been rumors about involvement with the Russian mafia. Like, the only thing I know for a fact has nothing to do with mafia is that President Trump actually owned, I think it was like 4% of the ownership of the neighborhood until he became president, and then that changed hands. And then one day I had a DirecTV guy come to my house to see if they could put a dish. And he goes, this neighborhood is run by the Russian mafia, right? And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, look into it, do some research. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, it seems like there is definitely the mafia, that the mob definitely has that link with the real estate back in the day in New York.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
There's always been those rumors, and I've been here for like 35 years now. So I remember that, like, as far back as a kid, people saying that. It's so weird.
Reminds me of like, I think it's in Mobsters, the movie Mobsters, where it's like, they talk about how no matter what you have to pay the mob, and it's like, oh, your business caught on fire, fuck you, pay me. Oh, fuck you, pay me. Like, it reminds me of that totally. Like, I don't care. Oh, you didn't make any sales last month? Too bad, fuck you, pay me. Like, so it reminds me of that. But anyway, when Robert was 7, his mother dies as a result of a fall from the family Scarsdale home. And he claims that moments before her death, his father walked him to a window and was telling him to watch her so he could see her standing on the roof, and then she fell. But his brother, in a March 2015 New York Times interview, says, Douglas denies that Robert ever witnessed the death. But I mean, it's been all over that he says he has. I don't know if maybe that's part of this sibling rivalry that they had going on, because as children, they underwent counseling for sibling rivalry. And in 1953, a psychiatrist report on 10-year-old Robert mentioned personality decomposition and possibly even schizophrenia. And there's been a lot of argument between him and his brother for years and years and years.
Well, I feel like back then, like, that was a really young age to, start, really diagnosing schizophrenia.
Sure.
Most people in the medical profession don't diagnose kids until usually they're like 15 the earliest. But like the
even then they don't like to.
No, we really don't want to make them make sure they're adults, because you can change.
They usually call it, in children, if they see something like that, they just call it mood disorder. They don't actually term it for anything, because like you said, so many kids can go through so much and change over the years that it could just be, you know, that he's just being a rebellious teenager, but also
right, and their brain is still developing.
Right.
You know what's interesting to me is at that time, like there was such a big stigma with mental health. So to put your children into counseling for sibling rivalry, like what exactly was going on there? Because
you gotta think, like, Christine, you gotta think though of who they are. Like, they are the rich elite. So, like, you know, I don't know. Like, I know that they did more things. They had more access to things that other people didn't do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it also could have been, you know, let someone else deal with the issues. The kids aren't behaving. Send them to the therapist.
I'll send them to the therapist. I don't want to deal with shit. No, I've got more businesses to go by. Thank you. Like,
because I'm like, sibling rivalry, that's like, to me, that's a normal. That's,
well, his mother had, and I think sibling rivalry is what they're saying it is, so that they don't actually have to talk about what was really going on. His mom had a drug abuse and alcohol abuse problem. You know, she was taking Mommy's Little Helpers, you know, and all of that quite heavily, and she did have a drinking problem as well. And go figure, because I think that the father, Seymour, he's pretty much a fucking dick. I mean, he is hell of a jerk of a guy. Like, you know, he's the typical dad, goes off to work and is this rich man that does not want to be bothered by his family in the least, but yet, you know, you have to have honor in your family. How dare you not want to be part of the family business? You know, all of that, you know, bullshit that comes along with, you know, being in that affluent, you know, lifestyle. Like, you've got to maintain the, you know, the image and all the different stuff. And so, I mean, there was serious problems in this family. It wasn't
I think that's true for so many affluent families.
Oh, yeah. And they try to hide it. But
I mean, so Durst attended the Scarsdale High School, where classmates described him as a loner, which, no surprise.
Right? No surprise there. He's super
he earned
weird.
He earned his bachelor degree in economics in '65 from Lehigh University, where he was a member of the varsity lacrosse team and a business manager for the Brown and White student newspaper. So he's at least a little bit more social in college, which good for him for at least branching out.
Yeah.
And then he did enroll in a doctoral program at UCLA later that year, where he met Susan Berman. But he eventually withdrew from the school and returned to New York in '69. And Susan Berman, she's going to come up in a hot minute.
Oh, yeah. So he goes on to become a real estate developer in his father's business. However, his brother ends up becoming appointed. Douglas was appointed in 1992 to run the company. And the appointment caused a rift between Robert and his family. Although originally Robert wanted nothing to do with his father's corrupt world as he saw it. He wanted to be alone out in the country selling like herbal shit. Like he had no, seriously, he had like a, he moved to Vermont to escape the business, and he opens up a small local health food store. And so he had like this house that he converted, you know, and he had the health food store in the front, and he had his own like, you know, little house and apartment above it and everything. And he tried to like, you know, make his own way, but of course he's still living off of dad's money, you know, like even though he doesn't want to, but I mean, obviously he is like
a health food store. Yeah. Making bankroll.
Especially not in the 70s. Like that was long before we became very health conscious, right? So, I mean, the Surgeon General at that point in time was still telling you that cigarettes was good for you. So, you know, I mean, the health food store is not banging business back then. But, you know, he's still being supported by his father. In the fall of 1971, Durst meets Kathy McCormick. And this is where everything really begins.
Don't go anywhere. The Good Wives will be right back. If you've been listening to our podcast for a while, then you might have noticed some changes. And that's because we recently switched our hosting platform over to Buzzsprout. And we love it. We couldn't have had a smoother transition. Buzzsprout made it super simple and gave us amazing features we weren't getting before. If you've been thinking of hosting a podcast or you're looking for a new host, then we recommend giving Buzzsprout a try. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in all the major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more within minutes of finishing your recording. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. And if you follow the link in the show notes, that lets Buzzsprout know we sent you. And it gets you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan. And it helps support our show.
So Kathy McCormick was a dental hygienist, and she meets Durst in Vermont. Obviously, he's running that health food shop. And after only 2 dates, Robert invites Kathy to move in with him.
I guess when you know, you know, right?
you want to kill somebody. She holds out for a bit, but she decides January of 72 to go ahead, move in with him. And maybe if they had just been left alone to leave out that rather simple, peaceful life in Vermont, running the health food store, perhaps we wouldn't be sitting here discussing this case. Sadly, that wasn't the path that was taken. Durst's father, Seymour, is adamant that Robert return to Manhattan and join the family business again. He's not much impressed with Kathy, but that's the terms that Robert gives for coming back. You either want me and my girlfriend, or I'm not coming back at all.
Right. So he moves Kathy to Manhattan, and they get married on April 12th of 1972, which happens to be Robert's 30th birthday. I guess that's the way he could remember their wedding anniversary. I mean, it's a real good way to do it. But I mean, basically, she was a simple girl. She didn't want all that, that lifestyle, and that became, a lot of a problem between the two of them. She plays the part of the dutiful wife for a little bit, but eventually she decides that's not, she wants to just be more than arm candy, and so she decides she wants to return to college and become a doctor. And this really is where the decline of their marriage starts to happen, because Robert's extremely controlling, and he becomes jealous of basically anyone that Kathy spends time with. And I mean, he's such an odd duck, he has paranoia out the wazoo. So this guy is crazy, and he basically wants to control everything, and she's trying to assert her independence. Hey folks, so right now we just need to enter a correction here. We had a name wrong and pronounced it wrong throughout, so we'd like to go ahead and correct that. The name that we said was Gilbert Najimy, or Nat Najami, either way that was said, but it's actually a female, and it's Gilberta Najimy, so we'd like to apologize for that error, but I didn't want to cut it out and cause more confusion within.
Well, shortly before Kathy's disappearance, she was a student in her fourth and final year at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx, and she was just a few months short of earning her degree. Now, she intended to become a pediatrician. McCormick was last seen by her friend Gilbert Najamy the evening of January 31st, 1982, when she appeared unexpectedly at a dinner party thrown by Najamy in Newtown, Connecticut. And Najamy noticed that McCormick was really upset. She was wearing red sweatpants, which he found to be odd. She had often dressed in much higher quality, higher end clothing. And she later left her house in South Salem, New York after a call. She later left for her house in South Salem, New York after she received a call from her husband.
Right. So basically he calls her irate, and telling her she needs to come home. So.
Well, I'm surprised maybe she was running away and that's why she was in sweatpants, but that is a very odd detail.
Well, yeah,
she goes to a party in the sweatpants.
Well, I think she just showed up to try, and she was trying to get away. Just a couple weeks before that, they had gotten into an argument and she ended up in the hospital. So she was definitely trying to get away. Now there is some allegings that she was having an affair of her own, and that's part of it. But I think a lot of that had to do with Durst being, just a jerk and being over paranoid and protective and, controlling. But I mean, she might have. I can't say one way or the other, but there definitely was some stuff going on. She was looking for a way out. And I think she went home to try and appease him at that point, to smooth things over and maybe get some of the things that she wanted. And I think it all went bad,
All right. I mean, it's just a big trail of evidence. She answers the phone. Oh, it's my husband. I'm going to go home now.
Right.
And then she's never seen again. Come on.
Kathy even told Najimy that if something were to happen to her, promise her that she would look into Robert as being the person who did something to her. So, yeah.
But now Durst, he maintains that Kathy and him did have an argument that night, and he does admit that much of their life in New York was violent and that he was very controlling of her. But he has stood by what he says, that on that night, he drove her to the train station, watched her board the train to Manhattan, and then she spoke to him from her Manhattan apartment later that night. And he hoped that explaining this, his story of what happened that night, telling the police, that it would just go away. But obviously, it didn't go away.
Yeah, I think he thought that if he admitted that they did have an argument and everything, that would show that, I'm being truthful. Yeah, we did have an argument. You're absolutely right.
So honest, there were times that we were violent. Absolutely. I was a very controlling husband, but that night I did nothing. I drove her. I watched her leave. I spoke to her, and everything was just fine after that.
Right, exactly. And I think he thought that set up the story for why she left. They didn't have children, so it's not like she had to consider, anybody but Igor, I guess, or Igor. Igor number 5, what, number 10? What is this? So, I mean, I think he thought that, I'll lay this framework for, absolutely. She was running away from a controlling husband. We had an argument and we were ready to be done, but I don't think so.
But I mean, it's not like it totally went away, but that it didn't go away, but it kind of did. Like, he just gets into different issues.
Well, I mean, no, because all the issues stem back to that he thinks that the other people that he's suspected of killing all have to do with either ratting him out for Kathy's murder and disappearance, or that they were there for that, or they played a part in it. So no, it really doesn't. And they do reopen the investigation once they come down to finding him, which we'll talk about when we get into the case of the neighbor, and there's been a couple of movies about this. There was one that was basically, fictionalized. They didn't use the same names. Obviously, the same story. It was really good. It had Ryan Gosling in it. Super, super good movie. But then there was also one on Lifetime called Lost Wife of Robert Durst, So they're both really good movies. I can honestly say I think both of them were informative and good, and obviously the Jinx. So there's been a lot of information that's come out in those different things. Yeah, I definitely think that.
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Are you struggling to lose weight and keep it off? Tired of wasting time and money on starvation diets that lead to more frustration and stress? If there was a weight loss solution that could actually work for you, would you try it? Then head to Golo.com.
I'm Steve. I lost 138 pounds in 9 months on Golo.
I'm Amber. I've lost 128 pounds with Golo.
If you're ready to take back control of your life, head to Golo.com now and see how Golo can work for you. That's Golo.com.
My sleep is way better. My inflammation has gone way down. Golo saved my life. I was way overweight. That's what sent me down the path. I wanted to make sure and live for my kid.
I have literally tried everything. I was on the verge of getting gastric bypass surgery, and I saw the Golo commercial, and it was the last thing I tried because it worked.
Join over 2 million people who found a better way to lose weight with Golo. Your healthier and happier life begins at Golo.com. That's GOLO.com. Again, GOLO.com.
It doesn't go away. Kind of gets shoved under the rug a little bit because his dad gets involved, and basically, not my son, not my affluent son,
But he doesn't get in trouble for it.
No, not at that time, but they do try to blade a case together. I mean, it's still an open active case, and I think once we get through this case that he's currently being charged with, that they're laying a foundation for Kathy's case. So I think she may eventually, if he doesn't pass away before all of this, there may be some justice for her.
Don't go anywhere. The Good Wives will be right back. So you often hear and see us Good Wives sipping a glass of wine. And one of our favorite wine clubs is California Wine Club. California Wine Club only works with small wineries, and they hand select 2 bottles of wine each month and ship them straight to your door. Now you don't even have to go to the liquor store to have a sip of bubbly with us. How cool is that?
We absolutely love hearing from our listeners, and we'd like to invite you to send us a question for us to answer or a case you'd like us to cover. You can drop us an email at goodwivesdish@gmail.com, and we might feature it in one of our next episodes and give you a shout out. We look forward to hearing from you.
When Kathy supposedly boarded that train, she went on her way back to Manhattan to meet Jimmy at a local pub, and however, she never shows up, and he becomes worried, so he alerts the police. He calls them several times, but they don't really take it very seriously, because there's no indication that she's actually missing yet. It's just she didn't show up to meet him at a bar for drinks. Well, okay, that happens all the time, right? Girls stand people up, so hey, no problem. But a few days later, Durst shows up in the police department. He brings his dog, Igor, I don't know how you say it, but whichever way. And you need to remember that later, folks. We've talked a little bit about Durst's dogs. They do play a big part in this story. Like I said, we think that he was using those dogs to, ramp up figuring out how to best kill his wife. So, but he shows up. He's got the dog with him, and he reports his wife missing.
This is 4 days later, right?
Yeah, this is, 4 days later. But if you think about it, they weren't living in the same house. So she had an apartment in the city. He had his own house. They had several homes, great real estate moguls. So, they were not cohabitating at this time, so he puts her on the train, thinks she's pissed off at him, talks to her later in the evening. Maybe she tells him off, that's the thing he's claiming. Maybe they go 4 days and they don't talk, and then he realizes, he's calling and calling. Maybe he goes and looks for her or whatever, and she's gone. Okay, that's a plausible story if you don't know what the hell is going on, So anyone?
Originally, a doorman at the Manhattan apartment claims that he saw Kathy on February 1st, but it was only from the back and about half a block away, so he wasn't 100% sure that it was her. Now, that's an important plot point because it's where Durst's longtime friend, Susan Berman, comes into the story. Right. Now, later, the same doorman is questioned by a private investigator hired by Durst's own criminal defense team. He recants his statement and says he had not seen Kathy at all, and he wasn't even sure he was working that night.
Right. So, yeah, that didn't go well for Durst. But this is where Susan comes in. There's 2 different versions of what they say might have happened, besides the fact that this guy is saying, oh, well, I wasn't working. I don't even know if I saw her. The other theories is one that it was Susan, and she had on, a dark wig and was dressed up like, they show her with just the hat and the raincoat and all that in the movies. And basically, that she was doing this to help out, Robert, and making sure that they could keep it going, that she was there, for this long period, and that she left and she had bags with her and all these different things. But some say it was actually Robert dressed up like her.
That's totally plausible.
Totally plausible in this story. Yeah.
But so Susan was his friend from college.
Right. Right.
And Christina, so I haven't been to New York since, I want to say 2005. Do they still have doormen?
Yeah, there's buildings with doormen, yes.
Yes, the high echelon ones do, yes.
Yeah.
That's so weird to me. I get it, protection, sort of. But it's just like a watch dude. Just
they will hail a taxi for you. They'll help you to put your bags in a thing. They do different things. They're not just like doormen.
There are still some buildings that have elevator operators, I guess you would call them, and that still blows my mind. That's so strange to me, because I live in a building with an elevator. So to get in the elevator and have someone who's like, "What floor?" and they press it, it's so strange.
Right, you can't lift your hand, you pampered bitch.
Yeah.
She might break a nail.
Well, okay, so the only thing I can see a doorman and an elevator operator for is for residences that are exclusively or have a large Jewish population. Because there are and so Tim did his internship at the Jewish home, and the Jewish people have a very extensive amount of holidays that are no work days, but you can still go to work, but you just can't exert any effort. You can't really open doors.
They are a Jewish family. This is a Jewish family.
There you go.
Durst are Jewish.
Yes. So you literally the elevator is always open, or there's an operator. The doors are all propped open. You can't dry your hands. It's insanity. Yeah. So that I can definitely see. Other people.
And there's a huge population of that in New York. Obviously. So it's kind of the epicenter for that. So
I've always wanted to go to Cat's Deli.
Yeah.
That's one thing
I haven't been there in years.
I've always wanted to.
Like we said, 3 weeks before the disappearance, Kathy was treated at the Bronx hospital for facial bruising. She told her friends that Durst had beat her up, but she refused to press charges. And that, that happens in so many domestic violence cases. And so many times, what happens is the woman doesn't press charges. She returns home over and over. And finally the cycle ends either, with the woman missing or found dead. And that's, that's something that happens over and over and over and over again.
Well, I was watching something the other day. I think it was only just a YouTube video where they said that when people make domestic violence reports, it's actually in restraining orders specifically, it's actually kind of counterproductive, as much as it's documented you wanted a restraining order, but a lot of times they don't get one approved, it's not enough evidence. But if they do, the person who you filed the restraining order against then gets a piece of paper that says where you live.
Yes.
Where they have to restrain from. So now they know where you are.
Yes.
And then they can come, and so often they'll come find you, beat you up, kill you.
Well, there was a case, God, and I know her name is Tracy. I don't remember the last name, but it was very similar to what you're saying. Is she had an abusive husband. She left him, got the restraining order, and he would show up and stand outside of her house, across the street. And so he would be just 100 feet away, and she would call, and the police would be like, well, there's nothing we can do. And she would move, and he would, obviously she has to notify him every time she moves and everything. And eventually he does kill her. And he killed her. He crushed her head in by stomping on her boot, on her head with a boot. And she called the police just before that and said, he's out there. And they're like, well, again, nothing we can do unless he crosses over onto your property. And she's like, does he have to kill me for you guys to do anything? And then that's what happened. It's exactly what happened. And I remember this case, this was a case I saw when I was a kid, I probably, teens, and I remember my mom and I watching something on it back when Lifetime didn't used to be freaking
Great.
No, back when Lifetime was really a good, Lifetime movies
good.
originally were really good. Then they got cheesy as their budgets went down. But back then, Lifetime movies were really probably where you saw most of these like true crime things, and they were decent. But it was a really good movie back then. And I remember her name being Tracy. I don't remember what the last name was though.
But so, Durst originally claimed that while they didn't have a violent, controlling relationship, that he and his wife were working on it. But it came out that he had been dating Prudence Farrell for 3 years.
Right.
Long time mistress there.
Mm-hmm.
And Prudence Farrell Burns is a American author, meditation teacher, and film producer. Jack of all trades.
Right.
She's the daughter of film director John Farrell and actress Maureen O'Sullivan, and the younger sister of actress Mia Farrow.
Right.
And she is the subject of the Beatles song Dear Prudence.
Yeah, so he was dating her for 3 years, but yet, Kathy can't move on, can't do whatever she wants to do. He can do
No, of course not.
whatever the hell he wants to do.
It's all about the man. What does that sound?
Church bells.
Ah.
Oh, how beautiful.
They do it every hour since the quarantine started.
Oh, wow, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the bells. I'm sad that that's what it's for, but
it's been something like I've got in the beginning. I was like, why? It's like almost was eerie to me, but now it's like almost comforting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
That sound. But yeah, I mean, so that happens a lot in these, these affluent families. Like it's like the rules don't apply to them. The laws don't apply to them. Everything is, it's like, oh, for the wife, it's supposed to be like, well, you just accept that, oh, just accept that he's a womanizing asshole. You've got, you've got all the niceties of life. Just that's the price you pay. Like I was listening to, one of my favorite comedians who's no longer with us, Ralphie May, and he was doing a thing, and this is kind of interesting since, we lost Kobe this year, but he was talking about the whole thing with Kobe going through the, where he was accused of sexual misconduct or rape or whatever you want to call it, because I don't remember how the case went down, but, with the girl and his wife standing by him. And he's like, she got a $4 million ring. Like a $4 million ring will buy you a lot of leeway. like, and it was hilarious when listening to him. And he's like showing, he's like putting the ring and like his hands falling over. And he's like, girl, I got a $4 million ring. Like, it was really hilarious. But, you think about that. It's very prominent in that kind of lifestyle. You just accept whatever it is. It's even happened with President Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe, and Jackie's just supposed to accept that, and she's the president's wife, so she's a Kennedy, so that's okay. I mean, it's very common.
Well, I love that Netflix show The Crown, when episode with Jackie Kennedy and is there, because the Queen is like, oh, I'm so jealous of her. She's so beautiful and she speaks so well and she's confident. And then at the end, she's, realizes how, kind of sad her life is. And she wishes she could have somebody that loved her fully. She'd rather be, poor and not really known than be famous and have a womanizing husband. And that there are several movies about that whole scenario.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that Jack,
so common.
I do think that Jack loved her and that she loved him. They had an odd loyalty and love there, but yeah, definitely. I mean, he was a out blatantly, womanizing husband. Like for a president, that was crazy back then. Like, holy crap. And I'm not saying that every president since then, I mean, I have my own issues with what happened or didn't happen with Bill, but I don't believe it's any of our business as an American people. I really didn't. But yeah, like you said, it's very common, like that's just what they
you just deal with it.
You just deal with it.
Well, while Durst and his wife were maintaining separate households, and she asked for a $250,000 divorce settlement, Durst went and canceled her credit card, removed her name from a joint bank account, and refused to pay her medical school tuition.
Right. So they're obviously, they're arguing, they're in this battle, and back then $250,000 was
that's a lot of money.
That was a lot of money. That was a lot of money.
That's like what equivalent to what? Almost $1 million now.
Sure.
Yeah, probably.
But 3 weeks after her disappearance, the Manhattan apartment superintendent claimed to have found all her belongings in an apartment trash compactor. And so then her friend and her sister, they learn of the disappearance, and they break into their little cottage home, hoping that they would find her out there, trying to maybe hide out for a little while or decide what she's going to do. And instead, they find that the home has been ransacked, all her mail is left unopened, and her belongings are in the trash there as well. So they leave because they become really scared.
See, I think he's such an idiot. You left the belongings in the trash compactor, all of her shit's in the trash. Get rid of the evidence, dude. That way you can claim it was stolen.
Right,
Don't
or that
put it in
she
the trash.
Or that she took it with her. Duh.
Don't throw it in the trash or just leave it. Stupid.
But yet he gets away with it. He gets away with it for a very long time.
And of course he did. Stupid.
Now it's I think about that. That's like when we watch the true crime things and we're yelling at the people, I yell at both the victim and the frickin' perpetrator.
Yes.
I'm always like, don't go up the stairs. Did you hear a noise? Frick, don't go in your house. What is wrong with you? Run the other way. Call the police. Your door is open. Why would you go ahead and enter, dumbass? But then I'm at the same time, I'm like, ooh, don't touch that doorknob. You didn't wipe it down. Your fingerprints are gonna be there.
Yes.
Oh, you took a drink of water. What is wrong with you?
Yes, I'm how are you, you stupid, you're not gonna, that show, How to Get Away with Murder?
Yes.
Oh my God.
I think that's when a show makes it good, when they make you see it where you're empathizing with both the victim and the perpetrator.
Yes.
That's what I love about the movie Psycho. And that's something I learned. I took a class in high school called Hitchcockian Theory, and it was all about Alfred Hitchcock, and it was amazing to me. And everybody looks at it like I'm crazy when I say it, like they've never heard of it.
No,
but in that scene in Psycho where he's cleaning the bathtub, the way it's set up and the music and everything, it's made for the viewer to basically side with him, hurry up, clean it up before you get caught. That's something I've always looked at now, can a movie or a show make me see things from both sides and, side with the perpetrator in one scene and the victim in another scene.
Have you watched the Bates Motel series?
I didn't finish it.
Oh, it's
Tim
so
watches
good.
that. He loves
I have
that
to go
show.
back and finish
Oh
it.
my God, that is one of my
That
is one of my absolute favorite ones, and I really felt like they did an amazing job of still keeping with the right amount of what the original concept was, but yet building their own thing. It was so good, so good. So if you haven't watched that. You haven't watched the Bates Motel, dude, you guys need to while you're in quarantine, sit down and binge the shit out of that thing. Because I watched it, I started, I think they were in season 2 or 3 when I really started watching it. And then it was I just couldn't get enough. I just kept going and I would binge it in just minutes. Every time they would drop it, I was like, oh my God.
It's on Netflix, right?
Yeah, I think it's on Netflix. I do. And it is so good.
Yeah, it is a good one.
And the acting in that, wow, incredible. Vera does an amazing job, and Freddie does an amazing job. It was just so good, and it got so much into, like you said, that was showing the impact his mother had, so much on him, on that character, and what built that character into who he was. It was super good. Anyway.
Don't go anywhere. The Good Wives will be right back.
What if you could be a true crime detective right from the comfort of your own home? Dispatch is an interactive serial mystery that unfolds over several months. Imagine the experience of an escape room in your own home, a new kind of escape called Dispatch. It's a subscription box that's a step apart from everyday entertainment. Better than a book, more engaging than television, think of it as an immersive mystery where you wear the detective hat. The story begins with your first delivery, or dispatch, if you will. In it, you'll find physical clues that lead you to the web and back to the real world to unravel a mysterious crime. Grab a friend, the whole family, and your thinking cap, and get ready to put your heads together for one mind-bending ride, as additional details are revealed with every package. Head over to our Instagram at www.instagram.com/truecrimewives and click on the link in our bio, then choose the dispatch button to start your own true crime adventure today.
Durst is currently on trial for the murder of his friend, Susan Berham. And next week, we're going to lay out the aftermath of Kathy's disappearance. And believe me, it's super strange. Durst flees, assumes a fake identity as a mute woman, kills his neighbor, and is finally now on trial for Susan's murder because it's suspected she helped him cover up Kathy's murder, and he killed her because she was planning for the police. Oh, and by the way, did we mention Susan is the daughter of Davy Berman, a reputed gangster who was in the late 1940s, operated the Flamingo Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada? Oh, and if that's not enough, COVID-19 rears its ugly head by giving Durst the ability to ask for a mistrial because he can't get a fair and speedy trial due to court closures. So don't forget to tune in that episode next Wednesday for our Wicked Wednesday release. What a freaking, so he can't get a fair trial, but everybody else,
right, they're dealing with it.
Affluenza again.
Affluenza. I've always said that, you know what, if they can claim affluenza, I'm going to claim povertenza. And that means when I get rich, I'm going to do a bunch of weird shit, and I'm going to blame it all on the fact that I grew up poor, and when I got money, I had no idea what to do with it, and so I just decided to do weird, crazy crap. Yep.
That's the best excuse there is.
That has to be, right? Because if they can claim that they grew up and that's why they are the way they are, then I can claim that that's why I am the way I am, right? Like, so stupid.
Ridiculous.
I absolutely hate that term. I just don't even understand why it's a real thing. Like, Brock Turner, that was the first time I heard them use that term, and I think I must have hit the roof. I was like, what the fuck do they mean by that? So he can just go around raping people because he has money, and God forbid they freaking don't want to tarnish his great reputation by the fact that he decided to rape a girl in a freaking dumpster? Are you shitting me? Like, I lost my crap.
Dude, you lost your reputation just from this trial because everybody knows who the fuck you are now,
right.
And nobody really believes the thing you say.
No. But I mean, it's common, like it's true. And this is one of the things I do have a problem, with our justice system. This is some of the stuff we talked about when we, did some things on the Gypsy case and talking to a couple of people and everything. Certain things were true about the fact that in justice, if you have money, you can buy your way out of a situation. If you don't, you're doing time, and that's a sad thing to know that, the wherever it is, it's not just, it's not just racist. It's not just, it's very much the justice system is against those who do not have money,
yes,
to defend themselves
right.
properly.
It's against the lower income.
Mm-hmm.
There's race. It's a gender.
Mm-hmm.
Sexuality, just every little thing. If, like Tim and I just said it the other day, unless you are a elderly or middle-aged cis white man with money, your jury is against you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. You know, unless you're OJ, who has, you know, Johnny fucking Cochran on his team, and Kardashian that can, you know, if the glove doesn't fit, you must have quit shit. You know, like, I mean,
everybody knows he did it.
Oh God, yeah, everybody knows he did it. Everyone knows he did it. I don't give a shit who you are. You know he did it.
Right, that Ford Bronco, bro.
Who writes a goddamn book called "If I Did It" and tells you exactly how he freaking did it? Like, the balls on that guy.
That's because they were acquitted. They can't be charged with the same thing twice.
No, but who does that though? You got away with it. Why don't you just shut your mouth and go on?
Yeah,
like,
morons.
I mean, what a slap in the face to write something like that. But you know, that is what it is. So, but anyway, guys, you definitely are going to want to tune in next week because this takes a crazy ass turn. You know, like I said, he becomes a mute woman. And he admits to killing his neighbor in, you know, quote unquote self-defense after he dismembers the body. Like, okay, if it's self-defense, why did you need to dismember the body? Like, you know, but hey, whatever, I guess, to each his own. But I mean, it's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on here to get us to where we are today with him being, you know, held on Susan Berman's murder. And that's crazy all in of itself. So you're definitely going to want to tune in for all of that.
Thanks so much for tuning in and dishing true crime with the Good Wives.
Don't forget to join our Patreon member club to get the full recipe shared tonight, inside documents and pictures from the case, bonus mini podcast episodes, live YouTube discussion, and an exclusive invitation to our discussion group on Facebook, and get some amazing Good Wives merch.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at True Crime Wives. And for more inside information, check us out on YouTube at Murder by Design, where we're currently talking about a few different true crime cases, from bullying murders to serial killers. We dish it all.
Have a good one from the Good Wives, serving up true crime, one dish at a time.